I've been through a lot. I've been through some pains. Left alone, but never gave up. I wanna share with the world, 'cause this is my story. I wanna tell it to the world, for this is my pain. This is my scar. Oh, this is my scar.
My name is Florence, but mainly known as Nashami Wangara. I am born again. I'm a fourth born of a family of 12, and my family is blessed, I must admit. I come from Western Kenya, but I've stayed in Nairobi for quite some time. I grew up in a very great family, and I was a good girl. I must admit, I was my parents' favorite, because I was out of trouble all the time from when I was a baby. Although growing up, I remember, which kind of contributed to that, I used to be a sickling. My better part of childhood into teenage, I used to be epileptic. So it made me to be kind of a reserved girl, as much as I would try to be all over. But I was a calm girl. And in my father's house, at some point, I remember we were staying with my dad alone, and he was the best father ever. He would play all the roles perfectly of a father and a mother, and just taking care of us. But growing up, I was a quiet, good girl from primary into high school. Nashami is a hotelier by profession, by training. I've worked in the hotel industry for some time. But right now, I am working as a communications administrator for a ministry called Joyce Meyer Ministries. And I'm an author. I've written a book, my first book. Hopefully this year I should be getting to the second one. I also work a lot with young people. I'm a youth mentor, working with young people in schools, colleges, in churches, just working with them and building them up, because I believe, I always say that this generation is my mandate. I have an assignment, and I give my all just to see many shaped for God. Yeah, and I'm single. I always say I'm singular. I'm very singular. But the Lord has kept me so far, and I enjoy every moment of my life. Coming into this forum, I have a story, and my story is about child loss. Why I love this part of my story is because, you know, many people, when you've lost a child, let's say I am married, I have a husband, and I'm a married woman, and I lose a baby. People really are there for such a kind of person, but it's usually tricky. If you're single, you're not married, you get pregnant, and you lose a baby. So I'll just take us through my story and even the impact thereof, and at the end of the day, what the Lord has helped me through that. Many years back, I was dating some young man, and I was in love. Everything was making sense. Until I got pregnant. When I got pregnant, I was a bit scared, because in my father's house, that was not a topic of discussion for a single lady. So I remember telling this guy, I can't keep this pregnancy. My father would kill me. And the guy was like, you will not get rid of the baby. We will have this baby because I will marry you. Well, I thought that was a good deal. I said, I would rather be a wife, even if it's because of the pregnancy, rather than going to my father's house with a pregnancy. Well, unfortunately for me, just before he could, because they wanted officially to come to my people from his place, that was the time I realized that this guy had a wife in the village. So here I was, I'm pregnant, and the person who says he wants to marry me literally wants me to be his second wife. I was a bit hesitant, because not number 2. If I'm not the first one, let it be Kaivo too. So I had to swallow it all, went home and told my people. It wasn't a welcome thing. There's something I always say, if I have wronged you, please tell me. It's better than you keeping quiet, because I don't know what you're thinking about me. So there was that moment of silence for me in my father's house. No one talking about it, no one asking me questions, I'm just there. And this man, when I told him I can't be his second wife, he left me. He disappeared in thin air. So at some point I was left alone with a pregnancy, in a silent home, and just that. And I remember there are times I would talk to my baby. I would just hold my tummy and tell her, baby, don't worry, I got you. You and I, we will win this because we have no one else. And I went through that. At that point, I remember I wasn't working, I wasn't doing anything, I had no source of income, I was just there. And I felt I needed even cash to go for clinic checkups. I didn't have. So when I finally managed to go for checkups, I was 6 months old, 6 months pregnant. And the nurses definitely didn't celebrate me. They were like, "Wewe ulikuwa wapi? Who gets pregnant at the 6th month ndio anakuja clinic for the first time?" Well, I didn't explain much because I knew where I was coming from. Well, I went for the checkups, they did everything, and they told me I need to do some ultrasound and some other checkups, but I didn't have the cash, so it was scheduled for like 3 days later. But unfortunately, 3 days later, one day, I'm just in my father's house, and bingo, the water breaks. But when I was just due out for discharge the next day, that afternoon, I get into labor and they tried everything. I remember the doctor telling me, "Madam, you will have the baby. You will just have to bring forth the baby. The baby might live or not." When baby came forth, I held her, the first person, and I remember just putting her on my chest and feeling so good. And I had some 1, 2, and 3 heartbeats, and then my baby died. I get home, I'm asking, "Where did you bury her?" I go to that a small grave, and I'm just seated there. The reality hasn't dawned on me. She wasn't due, yes. She was supposed to be inside me still. I'm missing to hear the baby kick, yet there's no baby to see, and it was just so tough. When someone is ready to be a mother, rather when someone has a baby, the maternal instinct and even the mammary glands, everything is prepared for baby. Here I am, I have too much milk, I have no baby. And the worst was that I could not freely talk about it. Because you are a single girl, you have lost your pregnancy, shut up. 2 things, thank God you are not ready to be a mother. Second thing, someone told me, and this was too harsh, that was God punishing you. Who gets pregnant before they are married? So I'm in a place where I am in pain. I want to mourn. No one is allowing me mourn my baby. I had given her name. I called her Zanel. So I am missing Zanel. I can talk about it. I remember then I was in the village and I come from Mumias. So sometimes I would go in the sugarcane plantation inside there and just have my time alone and cry and cry and cry and cry. It was a journey. Now, the unfortunate thing happened because no one was hearing me, no one was understanding me, no one was giving me a chance to mourn. I chose to find a way to forget, or so I thought. And that was the time, before all this baby happening, I used to be some very wayward girl. Used to try all manner of crafty things. But I remember that season when I was going through this, that is when I just started trying everything that will just make me forget. And what did I think about? I thought, maybe let me get into alcoholism. When I'm drunk, I won't think so much about baby. And getting into alcoholism a little bit, and then I'm getting into some little bit drug here and there, because when you open yourself to stuff will always come, or people that will give you will always find their way to you. So there I was trying every manner of thing. I just became a careless, I always call myself that I was careless with life. I was just doing anything to make me forget Zanel. But trust you me, I would forget Zanel for a day or two and she would be back in my mind. And it just went on. And the pain was too much. I remember those days, I used to shun away from anyone that has a baby. I see a pregnant woman, I start crying. I see someone with a baby, someone nursing her baby, I'm like, I don't have mine. And this went on because I lost Zanel way back in 2003. And I remember every 6th of December, because I lost her on the 6th of December, every 6th of December used to be a stressful day for me. I would just lock myself up and cry year after year. Sometimes I would literally go to the supermarket, buy a birthday card and write her all beautiful words, and then cry on that card and then tear it and throw it away. That was my routine for years. And sometimes you get into quarters where people look at you. Yes, I got born again. Yes, I was in ministry. Yes, I was living life. But deep within there was a void. And this void, people would unknowingly, hurt that place again. You're in a forum with ladies and they are talking about motherhood. Everyone is talking about my baby and then baby and then baby. And then when baby was due and then my baby. And I'm like, I almost had one. I don't have her here. Many a times I'll just walk out of those forums. I was like, I can't explain to everyone what I'm going through, but I'll just shut up. But I thank God because I was going through it my way. Let me say it so, my way. And I allowed myself mourn the way I could. There are times I will be okay. There are times it will just come all fresh. Some people think my baby was 2 or 3 years old when she died. I tell them she was in my womb and they're like, how? Si huyo unasahau tu? No, that was alive and we connected. And trust you me, she impacted my life because number one, my greatest passion is young people, especially teenagers. And those are her age mates, literally. So every teenager, I always say this, every teenager is my baby and I take them like my own from all corners. Give me a teenager right now, I'll sit there, I'll forget about everything else. Call me at night because of a teenager, I'll be up and I'll be running because of a teenager. Why? Because I connected with them generally through Zanelle in my womb. And when I wrote that letter and I started talking about it now, people started opening up, especially single ladies. They started opening up. They'll just get into my inbox. I was surprised the day I did that letter. Many, I think around 6 or 7 ladies got into my inbox. One will tell me, I got pregnant. I'm a pastor's child. I got pregnant and it was hid from everyone. I was taken to the village so that they can maintain the PR, the image here. And back in the village at 4 months, I lost the baby. So nobody ever knew that I was ever pregnant. And I was not allowed to talk about it. Finally, I can talk about it. And I realized my opening up was just an opening even for many other young girls to just open up and talk and walk this walk. And not just for the single ladies only, just anyone, because I say whether you are single and you got pregnant and you lost a baby, or you are married and you got a baby and you lost a baby, both are mothers that have connected with a life that doesn't exist anymore. And for that reason, I said, I will avail myself. I will just give my time. And just the more I talk about my girl, the more I connect with more girls. The more I share, the more I talk. Zanelle is the most beautiful story among the many stories I have. It's one of my beautiful stories. So beautiful that in the book that I told you I wrote, it's called My Story for His Glory. Basically, it's just me sharing my story on a larger scale. But Zanelle is one of the chapters. Somebody once asked me, what does Zanelle mean? I'm seeing a chapter here called the Zanelle Moment. I told him that was my baby. And it's a beautiful chapter I love talking about. So when all is said and done, God has kept me. God has helped me. And for that reason, I help others as much as I can and just be there for people. And I want to end with this. When someone is going through a loss, especially of a child, when someone is mourning, I always say, be very careful what you tell them. Because those words pushed some of us into stuff. Because we were like, allow me mourn. No, forget. Thank God. You're being punished. Ta-ra-ra-ra-ra. Because you hear, when someone is mourning, we are quick to tell them, it is well, God loved them more, or God picks his favorite flowers from the garden, and you're thinking, those words are not making sense to me now. I am mourning. So don't tell me God loved them more. It doesn't make sense now. So it's very critical when you're going to help to work with someone who is mourning. What I always advocate for, unless you have gone through such a loss of a person, just be there. There's power in that silence, just your presence, but you're not talking. Just be there. If they want to cry, just give them a shoulder. If they want to talk and just bring up the memories, allow them. And I always say, mourning is personal. Allow somebody mourn and don't cut them off and tell them it's enough. Forget. No. Let someone go through, because some people would cut short the mourning only for it to come back later and it continues. So allow someone go through it. If you can't tell them anything and you can't sit around them and keep quiet, then be away and just pray for them. But don't just throw words. You have no idea. Words are powerful. They can make or they can break. But at the end of the day, we are here and God has kept us to his own glory.
I've been through a lot. I've been through some pains. Left alone, but never gave up. I wanna share with the world, 'cause this is my story. I wanna tell it to